This is my take on traditional HD bridal makeup, which comes with many steps, very bold and beautiful, but I prefer a bit more natural looking look. So, my canvas today is a dusky complexion with acne sensitive combination skin types. Now, I've not removed any of the layers of HD bridal look, I've just changed the quantities a little bit. I'll show you, and added my own techniques, which I'll take you through step by step. I wanted a golden hour look for her, so I went ahead with mostly warm tones with sharp contouring and highlighting. She's got a lovely bone structure to do that for. Off camera, I have already shaved her face because she didn't have any open acne, so I could do that. Applied a little bit of hyaluronic acid serum, given few minutes for it to get absorbed, sprayed rose water mist twice, and here we are onto the primer. I'm using a smoothing primer to even out all the acne texture. I'm applying it more in the areas where there is more acne and less in other areas. I have applied pack primer for the eyeshadow base, and this is Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. It's a very lovely full coverage concealer. It's very long lasting, so I love it for my brides. This is an eyeshadow by Pack. It's 216 Pack High Pigmented Eyeshadow. I'm using it with this Pack brush, which is a very soft round brush. I can really get in the inner corners. I love it when the eyeshadow is completely from the inner to outer corner. It makes the eyes look a little bigger. I'm making her look like an Egyptian mummy, so that all the eyeshadow, if it falls on the cheekbones, I'm gonna have to remove it, and the skincare I've done, the skin prep I've done will leave along with it. So that's why a surgical tape. It's a very gentle tape, it doesn't remove any skincare. You can see how I've given it a wash of color. It's a lovely reddish, goldenish eyeshadow, and reddish is a shade that I mostly prefer. Reddish and copper tones I prefer on dusky complexion. This is Pure Passion Studio West Radiance Blush in the shade Bronze, but I love to use it as an eyeshadow because it's got a very smooth goldenish orangish texture. It's one of those eyeshadows that you don't really think it'll do anything, but it really elevates the look. You can see in both the eyes how much of a difference that made. This is Kiko Milano eyeshadow in the shade number 12. It's a champagne shade. I'm applying it just in the ball of the eyelids. Basically, I'm giving more of a structure to the entire eye with the shades I've got. The reddish goldenish shade, then the orangish golden shade, and now a warm champagne golden shade. I'm rotating the brush a little bit in the inner corner because this champagne shade is also going to work as her inner corner highlight. And now I'm going ahead with Max Factor Kohl pencil. It's a very smooth pencil. I love to use it on brides who have sensitive eyes. And now I'm using Pack eyeliner brush in the shade 12 in number 123. It's a lovely brush. Like, the thing I love the most about this brush is it's got a really good point, but not so sharp that it doesn't hold any product. It's just the right balance. This brush really improved my eyeliner skills. If you're struggling, this is a good brush for eyeliner. I'm using Faces Canada Solid Black in their long wear pencil liner range. That's a very good product. Like, it's very long lasting, it is very pigmented. The only thing is it doesn't give you much playtime. I get about a minute for it to set, and once it sets, that's it. I can't move it at all. Unlike Max Factor pencil liner, which never fully sets, I always have a little bit of playtime with it. So I use that when I want to apply powder. And here comes the special guest appearance, Krishi. Her name is Susmita. Krishi was completely smitten with Susmita. Like, she just couldn't leave her alone. And Krishi is a female pup, so she loves being around when I'm shooting, when I'm getting dressed. You know, she just absolutely loves being around that energy when I'm dolling up Susmita. You know, she's a girl. She loves that. So back to makeup. I'm using a Pack brush, pencil brush. It's 202. This is a very good brush. It holds product really well. There is hardly any fallout with it. I have two of them. It's a really good tool when I have two of them. I'm using a matte brown shade. You can use any matte brown shade. I'm using a dark chocolate matte brown shade and just applied it in the outer corner. I don't want to bring it all into the inner corner because she already has deep set eyes. When you have deep set eyes, you want to avoid adding darkness in the inner one third of the eye. Most of the darkness you want to focus on the outer two thirds of the eye. This is basically a hair glue that I'm using, but I'm using it for brows because I want to give her the laminated brow look. It really holds brows in place. It's got to be glue. I'm using it with a angled mascara brush. I've angled it basically. You don't have to run around and buy a new brush. Whatever brush you have, if it's got a steel rod running through it, the bristles, you can just bend it, angle it a little bit. If it's plastic, you can't do it. If it's steel, you can do it. This I'm just using it to brush the eyebrows up, and I'm laying them flat. I'm pushing them onto the skin and laying them flat. I don't want them to be standing up. I don't want her looking like Yakku from Chandrakanta. So being very careful in hitting the right balance of not making it look cruel, but at the same time I want to give her eyebrows a lot of volume because she's got very voluminous, beautiful, gorgeous curly hair, but her brows are not as voluminous. So I just want to bring more symmetry. I'm trying to match her brows to her hair. This is a empty spoolie that I always go ahead with the empty spoolie at the end after the product spoolie. I'm using the Brow Wiz by Swiss Beauty. It's a very affordable pencil. It's a very lovely shade. It's a grayish brownish shade. So it never runs warm. It never turns red, even on dusky complexions. I'm explaining her what I'm doing. uh, and I'm doing very thin hair-like strokes. Basically, I'm going ahead in the same direction of her eyebrow hair growth to add more hair lines, basically, as you can see. So that's what I had in mind for her eyebrows. In the center part of the eyebrow, the starting part of the eyebrow, it's very important to use a very light hand. You can see how very light and precise I'm being. Eyebrows is one thing that I really take my time because eyebrows can be a make or break for any look. So I don't like to use brown on dusky complexions because it turns red. At the same time, I don't want to use black because it just brings their coloring down. So I love to use a grayish brown shade, and that's a very difficult shade to find in the affordable price range. But this brown is very good, shade wise, formula wise, everything, affordability wise. I'm using a little of micellar water and cleaning underneath the inner part of the corner, the lower eyelid inner part corner, the eyeshadow that I feel came over there. This is the primer I'm using, Max Factor Miracle Smooth Primer. It's not available in India, so I've used a flat foundation brush. I'm applying more in the areas where there is acne and less in other areas. This is a very smoothing primer. It's got a little of serumy ingredients as well. Now I'm using number 300 Skin Highlights by Revlon. I'm sorry guys, this is also not available in India. Somebody was coming from UK. I got it from boots.com. I love using these flat foundation brushes and my fingers on sensitive skin, on skin that has a bit more of hair, on acne skin, because it's the most gentle way of pushing the product into the skin. Now I'm going to make a custom mix for her. This is my favorite part. I love to mix shades. I love to get them just right for somebody's coloring. So I'm using Chambord in the shade Honey and LA Girl Pro Corrector in the shade Orange, mixing them with this. Essentially, these are painting brushes, but they work really good for makeup. I used to paint a lot as a kid, so my hands are more used to these brushes. I'm applying one part of foundation and two parts of this corrector for the under eye color correction. And for the color correction around the lip and around the forehead, I'm using two parts foundation and one part color corrector. this is the advantage of mixing shades. You can make it custom to whichever shade you want, because our skin is a patchwork of different colors. If I use the same corrector under the eye and around the lip, in some areas it might become too orange, in some areas it's not orange enough. So I love to use these flat foundation brushes because they have a sharp edge, so I can get very precise where I want. On the right side of the screen, I'm sort of applying and I'm going to be blending the corrector with a sponge. On the left side of the screen, I'm mixing this slightly warm cream foundation. This is by Insight Cosmetics. It's a really good formula, very affordable. And I'm mixing this. It is a darker contour shade and one drop of Chambord in the shade Honey. I'm mixing all of them together. One is a serumy liquid foundation, the other is a thicker cream texture foundation cum corrector product. So this way what happens is I get a custom texture that I want. At the same time, I can create the shade I want. So now I'm checking it on her cheeks. On the left, yes, the shade matches. And now I'm going ahead with a Korean spatula, taking the product in a 45-degree angle on the product on the spatula, like so. I'm not going to swipe it in the area where there is acne, because that might aggravate it, even though her acne is closed acne yet. I'm just applying it in the areas where there is no acne with spatula, and other areas I'm laying the spatula flat. So I'm using the spatula instead of a slide. I'm using it as a apply with a finger, like in a dab part. See, I'm dabbing it with the flat part. I'm not sliding it because of the acne. And now I'm going to use a bigger sponge, blend that foundation all out. That part didn't get recorded. Just the way you're seeing on the right side how I'm blending with a small sponge. Same way, dab and dab it, dab and blend. Same thing I do with foundation on the right side also. I apply with a flat foundation brush and blend with a sponge. This is the most natural way of getting all the layers to look like they are a part of your skin. There's also more product wastage because sponge absorbs any excess product, but the outcome is more pretty this way. I'm using Johnson & Johnson Q-tip to remove the product that's gone into the creases, and just applying a little bit of corrector again. I've still not gone ahead with concealer. That's something I'm gonna do at the end if I feel it's needed. That too, I apply concealer on top of the powder because that way it becomes really long lasting and the dark circles become absolutely like not visible for very many hours. That gives me no fading. I'm using but then you got to be careful which powder you use. You have to use a primer cum powder for that. You can't just do that technique with any powder. So I'm using Lakme 925 primer powder. It's got a little bit of primer sort of ingredients in it. It's gonna give me that extra smoothing that I want. So it's almost going to make it look like she doesn't have any acne, because I want to smoothen out the texture to that part, to that point that the light just reflects. So it's a slightly, instead of covering the acne, what I'm trying to do is bounce the light in a way where it glosses over the acne. It looks like it's glossing over the acne. That's my aim, because I don't want to do too many layers. So this is my take on a HD bridal look. Instead of doing many layers, we just use certain techniques. I'm using Derma contour shade DJ13 and just contouring a little bit here and there. You can see under the cheekbone, around the nose, blending it nicely. First I'm doing cream contour, and next I'm going to do powder contour. I'm not doing a very harsh contour. This is still one of the lightest contouring for bridal makeup. For bridal makeup, contouring can be even like more bold than this. But according to me, that sort of changes the symmetry of your face, and I like it when my brides look like a more happier, healthier version of themselves instead of, looking like someone else entirely. This is a Miss Claire eyebrow powder palette. I've mixed the cool brown and the very light gray shades, created a custom contour shade for her. Contour shade for dark complexions can be tricky because everything can turn very warm very quickly on their skin. And contouring is always cool, because what you're doing is you're imitating a shadow, and a shadow is always tones of gray and brown. And those are the tones that you find in eyebrow powders more than contouring palettes. Um, so if any of these tips and techniques are being useful to you, please subscribe. And if you want me to do your makeup on your party or big day or anything, my email ID is there in the description box. So I've just applied a little bit with the pack crease brush, a little bit on the nose, a little bit. I've set the contour that I've applied. On this elf highlighting brush, I've taken the silky golden shade that I've used for her from Lakme 9 to 5 primer compact, and I've just dusting it very lightly. I don't want to disturb the serum foundation or the skincare underneath. So I'm just going, think of it like feather dust. We are just putting a feather dust on it. So just a little bit of dusting here and there, focusing more on either sides of the nose because that's where we get most oil. I've taken the same product, which is a slightly yellow undertone product, but it's not a banana yellow. It's a little darker than banana yellow, which is why it suits her the best. I'm applying it all over her neck, all over her chest, because essentially what I'm doing is I'm baking the neck. She's got a little bit of tan on her neck, which I want to deflect with the yellow in this product. And that's Krishi with her guest appearance, special appearance again. You know how people bake under the eye? I essentially bake under her neck. I'm holding the mirror for Krishi baby. She also wants to be a part of it. She also wants to get dressed up like us. So yeah, I bake the neck. One advantage of baking the neck is A, it deflects all the tan. B, it makes it really long lasting. So this way what happens is the difference between the face and the neck is not all that visible. It looks like you're one complexion. A lot of women in India, I feel, uh, our faces are naturally very fair, but our necks are not of the same color as our face. That's where baking the neck is the best thing to do. I am drenching her with highlight. This is Milani Luminoso. It's a blush, but I'm using it as a preliminary highlight for her. I'm going to be highlighting more. I'm going to make a concoction of highlighter, just the way I've done with eyeshadow. The highlighter and blush are just the highlight of this look. That's what is going to give the golden hour glow to her skin. Milani Luminoso is a very smooth highlighter that does not amplify any texture or any pores, which is my objective here. Because if any texture gets amplified, her acne will be visible, and the illusion that I'm trying to create with the light bouncing off the skin, that won't happen. So I'm only going to use very skin smoothing products. Now I'm going ahead with the same Lakme Silky Golden Primer Matte Powder and just finishing a little bit around the eye, the eyeshadow. I'm giving her a little bit of wing with the powder, not with the eyeshadow, but I'm applying powder in an angle which will make her eyes look a little uplifted. Same thing I'm doing with under her eyes. I'm setting the concealer with this powder, and I'm being very precise in the in the places I set it. I'm setting it with a concealer brush. So I'm going for a dab and pat motion, applying it a bit more in the areas where it would crease, which is the smile lines, and underneath the chin. She's got a lovely smile. I want to get a lot of pictures and videos of her smiling. So this is, oh my god, costed me an arm and a leg. Ambient lighting powder by Hourglass. This is diffused light. I'm taking it in a with Echo Tools brush. Echo Tools used to not be available in India when I bought it. Now it's available on Tira. I'm just applying it across the cheeks, completely across the cheeks. It's not a highlighter, it's a brightening powder, and it's got a slightly yellow undertone. Now I've used diffused heat and a mauve shade for blush for her. Ambient lighting powders by Hourglass have a very unique texture. They reflect light but don't amplify any texture. I am yet to see any other product in the market do it. Now I'm using a blush. Those two were my preliminary blush. Now I'm going ahead with a red matte blush by Kiko. The thing with red blush is you gotta use a light hand. You gotta be very careful. It requires an expert artist's hand because you apply it and you think nothing has come, and then suddenly you look like a red clown. So you gotta be very careful. Just dusting it. Think of it like pixie dust. Just a little bit of pixie dust on either sides of the cheeks. That's all. I'm going in a downward motion again because I'm applying it in the areas where there is acne. So I don't want to lift any product there. That's why the downward motion is very important. So just pat, pat, pat a little bit. I've used very minimum product. I've removed most of it on the back of my hand, and whatever is left, I've applied on the cheek. Red is a shade that's naturally present in our skin, like our blood, and so is yellow, and so is pink. So these three shades, they blend with the skin very well if you use a light hand with it. That's why they look more natural, and those are the shades I've chosen for her. It's mostly goldenish, reddish undertones that I've gone for. I've applied that same blush on the crease of her eyelid to make the entire look a little coherent and symmetrical. I'm selecting the lip shade again, gonna be a concoction as always. I'm using I've selected this shade by Studio West. It's from their neon range. It's NO03. It's a lovely brownish orangish color, which will look really good on tan complexions or dusky complexions like her. But because she's wearing a red lehenga, I want to go ahead with a slightly reddish brownish lip liner first, and then do the orangish brownish liquid lipstick on top of it. This is Chestnut Wet n Wild lip liner, very affordable, a very very good shade for dusky complexions. All the dusky ladies, you should be embracing this shade. This shade was made for you. She's looking like a little bit of Deepika Padukone vibes I get from her. The nose, the facial structure, the eyes, smile, even her mannerisms feel a little bit like that. So I'm using this liquid lipstick NU03 with a brush. I'm just using a very light hand because I don't want it to look like she's wearing a lot of product. I want her lips to look like, my lips but better, but just a little bit more plump and a little more full. So that's the lip shade I've made for her. It's a custom lip shade, and because it's a liquid lipstick, it's gonna last very long. The Wet n Wild lip liner in Chestnut, even that actually lasts very long. I've given the this part I ask the models and the brides to do it themselves, curling the eyelash part. It's more safe that way. Now I'm going to apply Max Factor mascara because I want to shoot in golden hour sunlight. I want to get some pictures in the outdoor from her. So I really need this mascara to last very long, to withstand a lot of heat, because it was in summer when we were doing this. I'm using it on an empty brush. It's a very very good waterproof mascara, Max Factor false lash effect. It's very long lasting. It's never flaked, not even once. And oh my god, look at that glow. Look at that golden hour glow. This is exactly what I had envisioned for her. The golden hour glow on dusky complexion is what my vision was. And you can see the acne is looking quite smooth. You can hardly make out there's any acne. Dusky complexion is like the most misunderstood complexion in the bridal market, according to me. There are more experienced makeup artists than me in the market, but this is my take on things.